talking about Charlie Kirk because it was just the memorial that just literally happened in the last few hours.
Yeah, 3:00 this morning, our time, and as we record this.
You know, off camera, we were talking about seeing how obviously Donald Trump was there, Elon Musk was there, Grant Cardone was there, and a lot of different famous people. But I guess one of the questions I have for you is, how did that assassination hit you personally?
Yeah.
Like, what's been your reaction in your circles?
Personally, it actually hit me harder than I would have expected. And I had to reflect on why. And it felt incredibly personal. I've never met Charlie. I respect his work from afar, as many people do. I'm just one of the millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of people. I appreciate his work. I like his videos. I think he's really impressive. That's it. There's no deeper connection there. And yet his assassination really, really hit me at a very, very deep level. And, you know, me being who I am, I asked myself, why? What is this saying about me, about Charlie? Why does this feel so personal? And I realized there's multiple layers to it. I'll start with this one. The injustice of it being him. Now, the injustice of it being anyone, of course. No one should be using bullets to try and to solve arguments. But of all of the people, it was the people who literally handed them a microphone. You know, there are other people who preach from a pulpit or who hold stadium shows or who have sort of one-way broadcasts. He was the two-way guy. And the injustice of it being him, of everybody, that for some reason, as I thought about it, that really offended me and cut really deeply, because it is a little bit of a gloves off moment. There are no rules now. If he's the target, if he's the one they picked, then there's no one off limits. Where everyone who dares to speak common sense is a potential target. But it's to see him cut down in the prime of his life, 31 years of age. I wasn't even married by 31 years of age. He's married, he's got 2 kids. And as I began to think, and then we saw the reaction, the groundswell, and of course we all realized, well, we're not the only ones feeling this way. There's literally worldwide. Why was he so significant?
Sorry, didn't see you there. While you're here, actually, we've got a new coaching cohort that just opened up for the Unemployable Property Coaching Program, that you get taught on how to become a property developer. One-on-one coaching, bi-monthly coaching, and also events where we get a full coach bus with all the students and go to 6-7 different development sites. When I say development sites, from 1 lot to 10 lots to 50 lots. So you get to see exactly why we buy it, how we fund it, and also how you can do it yourself. The next day, we had an amazing event at the QT Hotel here on the Gold Coast, where we had all of our consultants come in and teach everybody on what they're looking for with sites, what are the different trends, and how you can become a property developer yourself. Now you see me on the video, but who you're gonna be getting coached by is Shannon and Carson. Who's Shannon and Carson? 4 years ago, Carson was cleaning carpets. Shannon was a machine operator. Today, they're doing over $100 million worth of land deals. I know you're listening, and I know you want to take action. And if that's you, click on the link below or go to www.unemployableproperty.com.au and register your interest, and one of our team will reach out to you, and we'll see you on the next bus. Now get out of here.
And I came to realize that for younger people, he was the embodiment of what Jordan Peterson talked about. Jordan Peterson talked about get up, make your bed, become excellent at something, slay your dragons, get married, have kids, make sacrifices for something bigger than yourself.
Learn to speak well.
Learn to speak well.
Charlie did.
Know why you believe what you believe. Have arguments and debates with people. You know, Jordan Peterson in his 12 Rules for Life and then 12 More Rules for Life and in all of his work has been advocating this kind of way of life. And for younger people, they found that inspiring, but he was the grandfather figure. He wasn't the role model. He was too far removed. He was too far out of touch. Charlie, I don't think on purpose, but Charlie, just by living as he lived according to his values, for literally tens of millions of especially young men, became the role model. He became the aspiration. In the same way that you've got people like Andrew Tate trying to become a materialistic aspiration. He's out there with his money and his nonsense, in my opinion, his ego, and he's saying this is what being a man is like. He's connecting, he's got an audience because there are young people desperately looking for what does it mean to be a man? And they find him, some people. But a lot of people, a lot of young men found Charlie Kirk. And they said, here's this guy. He's phenomenally intelligent. He's articulate. He's brave and he's bold, but he's also compassionate. He married the cheerleader, the winner of the beauty pageants. He's got 2 kids. He's the embodiment of everything that grandfather Jordan Peterson has been telling me about. Charlie Kirk was the proof that it worked.
The thing is as well, and you mentioned Andrew Tate, there's a lot of these left-wing or right-wing people with extreme views that have pulled an audience because they've appealed to people who were already on their side of thinking and on the debate. One of the reasons why I think Charlie Kirk was so powerful and ultimately what got him killed is because he wasn't extremist in his views. He was quite conservative in his views, common sense, as you mentioned. And he was able to swing people
That's right.
who didn't see the world that way or weren't part of an already existing base.
And I think it's really important, if we're going to talk about Charlie, it's important to talk about why. And so I did a tribute video to him, not that it's my place to do that. I had no connection with him, but I wanted people to see what was it about how he did what he did that made him so effective. And it's very simple. The rules of persuasion are very, very simple. The first thing you have to do is find some common ground and meet somebody where they're at. And the fact is, we have common ground with absolutely everybody. I think that Marxism is literally a death cult that is going to kill, it's already killed hundreds of millions of people and will in the future. But if I meet a Marxist, I can still find common ground with them. You know how? They'll say to me, I think that workers should be able to live with dignity and have a living wage and be able to afford to live a dignified life as a worker. I agree. I absolutely agree. We just found our common ground. We can work together from that point. And if you watch Charlie's debates, he is the master of finding and acknowledging that common ground. But what he then does, which is so rare, people who are bold in their position often choose not to find the common ground to start with. People who choose to find the common ground then become mealy-mouthed and whataboutists and having an each way bet and never actually stand firmly on their position. Charlie was the master of the art of meeting someone where they were at, acknowledging the area in which they were right, and saying, yes, you know what, that thing that you've just said to me, you're hurting because of, let's say, in the Australian context, some young person comes up to you and says, I want to smash capitalism because of the failure of the housing crisis and the way things are going, I'll never be able to own a home. You know what, smashing capitalism, terrible idea, because capitalism is not the problem, but the housing crisis, very real. The despair that they feel at not having a future, very real. Let's meet them where they're at. Let's start there. Instead of going, no, capitalism's the answer. Well, that is the answer. But you start by meeting them where they're at.
It wasn't just that with Charlie Kirk, though. It wasn't like that was a tactic for him. I remember he did an interview with Tucker Carlson, and Tucker Carlson said, basically, what is the number one problem here? What is going on? And he started with that. He said the number one problem is economic.
Yeah.
He said the number one problem is that kids these days cannot do as well as their parents did because the economic conditions are not set up for them to succeed.
Yeah.
So he starts with the problem, not the symptom.
Yeah.
And a lot of these other left-wing, right-wing, they always talk about the symptoms because that's what gets them engagement.
But in terms of persuasion, at that individual one-on-one level, the reason they shot him was for exactly what you said before. He was not just being polemic and gathering an audience of people that already agreed with him. He was taking people that didn't agree with him and not necessarily making them agree with him, but bringing them one step closer. There's an analogy that I may have given 5 months ago when I was on here, and I apologize if I did, but changing people's minds is like gathering pippies off a pier, right? If you've ever gone as a kid, you ever go and get pippies off a pier, right? You can drive in the car, you've got your bucket, you've got your pliers or something to be able to get those rotten things off. The hardest part is actually cracking them off their existing position. Once you've done that, you chuck them in the bucket, stick them in the boot, that's easy. Getting them to leave the position that they currently hold, that's the bit that's hard. And too often we focus on, you haven't come all the way to the destination of where I want you to be. No. The triumph is to get someone to go, I realize I'm not 100% right. That's the challenge, and that's what Charlie achieves by meeting people where they're at.
You mentioned just in that why they shot him, and just to dispel a few myths out there. Obviously, the internet's ablaze with the conspiracy theories and Benjamin Netanyahu or whoever it is. Can you give us your take on the reasoning why, and is it all horseshit? And just
Look, I think the latest hot take I heard was that the return of Christ had happened and the first thing Jesus did was shoot Charlie or something. I'm not quite sure, but there's some pretty crazy stuff out there, right? No, he was shot by a guy who had drunk the Kool-Aid. So it's amazing to watch the media playing both sides of this. And I will answer the question, but I want to answer it through the lens of how it's being talked about. You know, I'm watching Australian commentators talking about how the Democratic leadership all condemned the violence. They all said the right things, and the Republican leadership all wanted to politicize the violence, and they just wanted to whip up fear and everything else. No, hang on. What you say after an assassination is not nearly as relevant as what was said before. And you cannot pretend that the Democratic leadership, the mainstream media around the world, as well as Australian politicians as well, demonizing Donald Trump, making comparisons to Hitler, saying that the MAGA movement is the new Hitler youth, talking about these kinds of terms, and then knowing full well that, for example, in high schools, we have these fun ethical questions as part of ethics classes or psychology classes in university. You know, if you had the chance to kill Hitler as a baby, would that be the right thing to do?
Really? Wow.
Right now, these are the sort of thought experiments they're playing with in high schools and in universities. So when the Democrats come out and say this guy is literally Hitler, what are you saying at that point? It's no surprise that someone a couple of people tried to take out Donald Trump. And so them turning around and condemning the violence after it's happened, when they were the ones who laid the groundwork for it, they built the entire foundation for it. Now, when you get a shooter, in this case, raised in a conservative family, it's no coincidence. So the shooter against Donald Trump, who hit him in the ear, he was raised in a progressive family, couldn't shoot straight. The guy who shot Charlie Kirk in the neck, raised in a conservative family, taught by his dad how to hunt up in Alaska. Tragically, the result was his shot landed. And you've got this kid who was raised in a conservative family, whose mind was poisoned in university, gets into a relationship with a transgender person who he's now living in with, who, by the way, also came from a conservative family and has rebelled against that. And they drunk the Kool-Aid. They went all the way in. And I'm not sure if I talked in the last podcast about how that younger generation is splitting. There are the people going deep into the Kool-Aid end, and there is a huge cohort that are actually rejecting it altogether because they're seeing the consequences of it. The problem that we've got now, as the world is healing, we're watching this incredible social movement happen in the 2020s, which is literally the counterpoint to the 1960s sexual revolution. We are watching the other end of that pendulum swing right now. What's happening is a new generation of bitter clingers is being born. These are people who will forever look back on 2021 and 2022 and 23 and say, back when we had pronouns, back when no one was allowed to misgender us, back when all we had to say is, I'm offended, and instantly we won every argument. That will forever for them be the heyday, the halcyon days, the high point of civilization. In the same way as there were people who moved to Argentina and grew old and died wishing that Hitler had won the Second World War. They were the bitter clingers out of that era. In the same way as, in American politics, I want to say the bitter clingers clinging to God and guns, right? The new generation of bitter clingers are clinging to pronouns and clinging to gender identities, and the world is now moving against them. Those people who have nailed their flag to that mast, who have burnt all of their friendships and relationships, in the case of these two kids, rejected their families and burnt all of those bridges, as they watch the world moving away from them, they will become incredibly dangerous people.
You've just watched a section from my 90-minute interview with the guys at Unemployables Media. I've put the link to the full video podcast on YouTube into the description of this video so that you can find it. My name's Topher Field. What I do is called the Topher Project, and if you like my videos, then you can help the Topher Project to keep going by buying me a coffee via the button at topherfield.net. And if you like my videos and what I've had to say in this podcast, then chances are you're going to love my books. They're all about government, power, and civil disobedience. There's Good People Break Bad Laws. This is all about the role of civil disobedience in a modern society. Then there's Good Christians Break Bad Laws. This is about the theology of civil disobedience. Then there's also my DVD multi-award winning documentary Battleground Melbourne, about the madness of what went down in Melbourne during the COVID era under Daniel Andrews. You'll find all of that plus my t-shirts and hoodies at goodpeoplebreakbadlaws.com. And everything you buy is going to help me to keep producing content like what you've just watched. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. The algorithm loves you, and so do I. Please like, comment, subscribe, and as always, think free.